what does it truly mean to be not have to worry about money?
The golden handcuff is a very real thing where, you take a high-paying job out of school, then you start a family and you have a mortgage. All of a sudden, it becomes a trap that's hard to leave because it's just too much risk to leave something that you don't enjoy to start something else. My advice to people, if they don't enjoy what they're doing, is just figuring out what is that side hustle you want to do. And I would never recommend just completely like pulling the rug under the golden handcuff. Then slowly you're able to get out of what that golden handcuff is.
That's why your reputation is what it is, because there's such a level of all-encompassing, like you do way more than just a post. You know what I mean? It's so much deeper than that. Where did that specifically like ramp up for you? Like because you've been in the influencer game since
2012, 13, is when I had my first team. So over 10 years now. Yeah. I honestly think it dates back to my insurance business, which was the first business I started right out of college. And I realized a couple of years into it that if you're memorable and you focus on a certain niche, you'll get name dropped. And like going door to door sucks. And that's what I did for 2 years in my insurance business. Is I literally drove 50,000 miles a year all around upstate New York, just going door to door, knocking on campground and marina owners' offices. And, through that, I realized that my name was getting dropped because I specialized in something. And, I was the guy who saw them every single year and talked to them constantly and saved them money. And so that was kind of my first aha moment of like, okay, be memorable. If you're memorable, no longer do you have to continue chasing. Opportunities start to come to you. So with the influencer business, started out very much like any other influencer early in the day where we were just getting paid to post a photo.
Yeah.
And then, I soon realized like I have a lot more to offer. I have a massive network that I've amassed over the years in the fitness space, in the investor space, in the business owner entrepreneurial space. And I could open up my network for these people. So I started doing that. And all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, thanks for the intro. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for the intro. We had such a good conversation with Jack and such a good conversation with Jane. And I'm like, cool. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm helping build an online community by not only posting, but seeding product to other people. So it's amplifying the message just beyond my reach. Why don't I do like in-person stuff? I'm already doing it at the house. Like we have people over every single night. I see the joy in their faces when they come over and they take products from, our bins at the house, which you've been over to, and people come in sauna and cold plunge. So then I'm like, why don't I just start doing group workouts and group rocks and group cold plunges? And then it was like, all right, let's take this to other cities. Let's pop up a house in Austin, which has kind of become the mecca for wellness, and just like open it up to the public, like have this public booking where people can go on and they can book a spot in the sauna and meet a bunch of new people.
Yeah.
So that's really how it's evolved, is I just see these new opportunities to continue building online community, in-person community, and just get the products in front of people, which is the hardest part for any early stage company. Like honestly, the formulation for most companies is pretty fucking easy. It's not rocket science to like have a creatine or have an electrolyte company and hire a branding agency to build your brand. The hard part early on is getting it out there, like figuring out product market fit and getting it into the hands of those people that will enjoy it and share it. And that's really where I come into play, is I can help amplify that a ton early on. And then, once the brand gets to 20 million, 40 million, then it's probably a little beyond my expertise. And there are other people who are better at hiring teams and, growth agencies and doing all of that. But early on, the awareness part, I feel like I've really gotten a front row seat to learn what works for an early stage wellness brand.
And I see that because I'm somebody that goes to your house, never gets exposed to these types of products. I'm not like I'm cheap. Like I don't spend money on different things. Like one of the best examples was Beam Dream. I'm at your house. You supply it to me, or like you supply it to me, but you gave me Beam and I had the best night ever.
Yeah.
Best night's sleep ever, consistently. Go home. Now all of a sudden I'm on a subscription.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't think that it's that simple, but really, truly, like you have found a way in masses to get people products in hand that they would have never come across, never would have searched it. They would have never gotten Target with it. how have you seen it evolve from back in 2012, 2013 to how are people making buying habits or buying patterns now? And also, what was your first brand deal?
First brand deal was I got a bike at cost. I still had to pay the cost of the bike, but
Yeah.
it was with Diamond Bikes, which was a beam bike, meaning there's no seat post on it. Super aerodynamic bike. That was my first brand deal during my Ironman years. 2012, I think, is when, or 2013 is when I started working with them. And then I think the first time I actually got a check for posting a picture was from a company called Yum Butter. It was a nut butter company, squeezable pouches that were really, really good. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but that was my first like pay to post a picture type deal. And what you just said about Beam Dream, I think there's also this memory tied to it when you get it in someone's hands as part of an experience,
Hmm.
whether it's coming over to my house or going to Running Man and experiencing it for the first time at Running Man or at Brian Maz's HPLT. There's this stickiness to it because you experienced it in a way that you have this amazing memory tied to it. So I think that's important too, is figuring out if you're an influencer, like how do you also tie a memory to these things that you're putting in people's hands. How has it evolved since 2012? I mean, 2012 was very much just, again, like you're a sponsored athlete, like
Hmm.
just like do your post and then tag them at the bottom,
Yeah,
like a lot of
yeah,
athletes still do, honestly.
yeah.
And, I think it's evolved a lot more now to a business relationship. And a business relationship is all about ROI, return on investment. How can I provide a return on investment for that company that is paying me to get their products out there?
Yeah.
So that's how I approach every relationship now. I'm not thinking about like how much value I have because I have this number next to my name. I'm thinking about how can I provide a return on them paying me each month, and that's why I've layered on all of these different services way beyond just, posting that picture or video every month. So that's the in-person events, that's the founders only retreats, that's the community events, that's hosting people every night at the house. That's seating products to people. So all of those things just kind of layer on services. So it does provide ROI. And if you provide ROI, people are going to name drop you. They're going to tell you to another brand in the wellness space, like, hey, you got to work with Eric. He crushes it for these early stage wellness companies. He's your guy. And that's what I want to be. I don't want to be the knocking on your door guy or DMing companies guy. I want to be the
Yeah.
guy that's just like thought of, and, I don't have to chase.
And one of the things that I've seen just in my relationship with you is you make people better. And I say that like that is one of the, I think the highest ways that you can regard somebody is when you get into their presence, you make them better. For example, I am in Nashville, you are across the country, you're either in Austin or in Denver, and I'm standing in a room with 7 people. Every single person in that room knew each other through you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Every single person did business with each other because of the relationship that you connected with people.
Mhm.
Not if you just take that and you look at that, and that's probably whether conscious or unconscious, but then you hear the stories of people of how they met you in their journey of building their company.
Mhm.
Jack Espy is a great example.
Mhm.
Burnt out, meets you. All of a sudden, he loves his company again. I talked to him yesterday, and he's fired up. And you just see this, like you see this vibe. I left
Mhm.
Denver. One of the hardest times in my life when I came out to Denver the first time. I left. I've not been the same since. We have this podcast right now because of that.
Mhm.
You have consistently, like the drive of like, yes, is it influencer marketing? You make people's lives better. Where did that start? Where did you start feeling that intoxication of like making people around you better?
Yeah. So I grew up as an only child in a really small town, Pulaski, New York. And I used to have friends over every single night to play basketball in my parents' backyard and play ping pong. And I just realized like I like leaving people with a memory. And I always enjoyed connecting people too, and just considering that, the sum is greater than the parts. I played team sports in high school, and, the sum has to be greater than the parts if you want to be good as a basketball team or good as a track team. So I think it was really instilled in me at a young age, those traits. And then again, with the insurance business, I realized that if you occupy a really small amount of a lot of people's minds, opportunity comes to you. And I've just continued to piggyback on that. So, I often preach meet at least one new person every single day. I probably meet 5 to 10 new people every single day because we invite people to come over and do
Mhm.
contrast therapy every night. If you multiply, call it 3 people a day times 365 days in a year, that's 900 new people each year. You do that for 15 years, that's 15,000 people that you'll have that
Yeah.
you've met and that you occupy this, small part of their mind. So, I mean, that's honestly why my phone is constantly blowing up, is because I occupy this small amount of a lot of people's minds. And, when they're in New York City and they're meeting with someone who just started a brand, like I come to mind for them.
Mhm.
So, social media obviously is another way where if you're just constantly creating content, you're occupying this small amount of a lot of people's minds. And that's really how tremendous opportunity comes back to you. So it's that, and then just leaving people with a memory. And I get a lot of joy from seeing relationships blossom from this environment that I cultivated, whether it's a retreat, whether it's my backyard. Like,
Mhm.
I love seeing just cool relationships blossom from those environments that I created.
Yeah. When you think of your output, I think that's another thing when people talk about you, they talk about the way that you network and the way that you introduce people and the value that you leave people with. But also, I don't know many people that produce at the level that you do on a consistent day to day basis. Do you ever feel a pressure, or is this something? Because I think it's interesting for the person that is in the position of maybe they can't get out of off the couch. Like that person,
Mhm,
compared to somebody like you who I don't know a day that you've just probably like been like,
mhm,
I'm not doing anything today. Like how have you been able to transition to that? And like what is that fueled by? Or is it
mhm.
conscious or unconscious?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. I'll answer it a few ways. I think energy fuels energy. So the more you output, the more you can output.
Hmm.
Not only from the standpoint of like you build this larger ability to, produce
Hmm.
and be productive, but you also, I think by doing, you continue to do. For example, like if I'm sitting on a plane all day and I'm just like doom scrolling on my phone, that's when I'm the least productive and I feel like shit
Hmm.
because I'm not really producing anything. I'm not progressing. But like a day like today, where I'm in the mix with the 10,000 crew for a morning workout and coming on this podcast and then hosting 2 workouts after this, like I'm energized the entire day because I'm just like in this output state all throughout the day.
Hmm.
And honestly, the more I exercise and not just doing like one thing, like running. Obviously, if you run too far, like you're going to be tired. But
Yeah.
if I have variety within my exercise, it gives me more energy to continue either exercising or being productive.
Hmm.
So a lot of how I design my day is around activities and environments and people that I know will give me energy to continue producing. So in the morning, I hit a CrossFit workout. That really sets the stage for the rest of the day, where now I have tons of mental clarity, I have tons of energy, and I'm going to be super productive and super on for
Hmm.
my 3 hours of calls immediately after that morning workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after 3 hours, like I'm probably going to be a little mentally fatigued. So it's time to take a break from that. And that's generally when, if I'm in Colorado, I'll go off into the mountains and go mountain biking. And that 60 to 80 minutes recharges my social battery and also gives me that narrow aperture and that energy to then focus for another 2 or 3 hours on creating content, podcasts, brain calls, whatever it may be. So that's how I design my day. It's designed very much in a way where I know what's going to fuel output and then how long I have high output for, when to stop, when to do something else that'll fuel that next output. And then every single night, this, I do contrast therapy. And that really just like resets my nervous system. I feel so fresh mentally after that.
Hmm.
It's like, this massive to do list I might have that's stacked vertically on my head. All of a sudden, it's just out in front of me, and I feel like I can tiptoe over it. So, that's super important to me to get in that contrast therapy at night. Even if it's just one round, getting in a sauna for 20 minutes and then hopping in cold water for 3 minutes. I keep that in my daily routine because if I don't do that for several days, then I do start to feel stressed and I start to get anxiety and I start to feel kind of the weight of the world on my shoulders. So, for me, time blocking and just keeping a routine around those things is super important to maintain that high output.
Yeah, it's the contrast therapy is an interesting thing because also what people might not know is that you not that you are 100% clear and sober, but I mean you pretty much practice complete sobriety besides here and there. Um that is something when you talk about your schedule and what you output and what people demand on, like what the demands that come on Eric on a day-to-day basis, your phone blowing up, that is something that I think would make most people kind of crumble when they haven't found a way to do what contrast therapy did.
Mhm,
I went and we did contrast therapy for 3.5 hours in Minnesota.
mhm.
Never in my life have I come out of a situation feeling more with it
Yeah.
and feeling more like, listen, throw whatever at me, I'm good. Like
Mhm,
I can handle this. I can, and it's you can't get that through a glass of wine at night.
mhm.
Although the same sort of feeling, it's different. And I know this has not always been like this. When did you start to feel that shift? Because when did you find contrast therapy? I guess we'll start there. When did you find contrast therapy?
Yeah, I mean, the first sauna I went in with with um wanting it to yield a certain benefit was 2012 when I was preparing for Ironmans in
Hmm.
hot and humid climates. I went to a place called Sonicuse and sat in an infrared sauna. And after doing that for a couple weeks, I realized that I was getting way more than just heat acclimation benefits. After each of those sessions, it felt very similar to how I felt post exercise. I just felt like mentally clear, energized. My body was loose and limber. So I kept doing infrared sauna on a pretty regular basis while I was in Syracuse training for Ironman. Ended up buying my first infrared sauna in 2015 that I had at my condo in Syracuse. And then when I moved to Denver in 2017, I found a place called Denver Sports Recovery. And the protocol there was sitting in an infrared sauna for about 50 minutes at 155 degrees, and then doing 3 rounds, 5 minutes in a hot tub, 5 minutes in a cold tub. And that was the first time I did contrast therapy. I think the cold tub there was like 51 degrees. So not super cold, but enough that it was very much a shock to my system. I'd never
Hmm.
been in cold water like that before. And so then it was, what I was doing before on steroids. Like I just felt so energized and so refreshed after each of those sessions. But that was also a taste of the community aspect of this sauna and contrast therapy culture. I was having some of the best conversations of my life when I was at Denver Sports Recovery, and I was
Hmm.
meeting some of the best people of my life. Prior to that, I was, sitting in my own infrared sauna by myself, or I was at a recovery studio that just had like individual infrared saunas.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized the community benefits and like how many cool people I was meeting and how many great conversations I was having. And I think honestly that's almost more of why it's stuck with me now is because I enjoy that community aspect and I enjoy the just human bonding time that I get with contrast therapy. And ultimately that's why we designed our house in Denver as this hub to host people and have them come over and do contrast therapy.
Every time I leave Denver or just a session where this is super prominent, I think about how much I want to invest in that area of my life because not only just for the physical benefits, but the community is probably one of the biggest pieces of it.
Mhm.
Because when I first got my first ice bath, my friends would come over because they wanted to use the ice bath.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden, people that never gotten cold water, all of a sudden, like, oh, I do this now. And then they get their own. And then it's this very cool experience, which kind of back to the point of the whole thing of what your kind of North Star is. You're just making people around you feel better, like
Mhm.
think clearer, everything like that. When you were going really hard with the insurance business, was there an aha moment for you where you were like, this lifestyle has to stop? And like, what do you attribute that mindset? It obviously hasn't changed because it's just a different medium, but like, why the median of health and fitness over drinking, partying,
Mhm.
eating whatever you wanted? Where did that kind of shift for you?
Yeah, there was no one defining moment. It was more just a gradual decline where I felt like I was going through the motions. I was living for the public perception of success, just having nice things in a nice place and joining all the fancy clubs. And I just didn't feel super fulfilled. And I had gotten physically pretty out of shape. I hired a personal trainer around 28 years old, and it was very much for the aesthetic side of it. I just wanted to get in aesthetically good looking shape again. But after about 6 months of training with him and then starting to run again and buying a bike and starting to cycle, I started to correlate how I was feeling with the exercise, like the mental clarity I had, how I just felt like I could be my authentic self. I could be vulnerable. I didn't need alcohol to fuel authenticity or vulnerability anymore. I felt just like I was an amazing person after the exercise. So I started to gravitate more towards exercise than going out and partying because there was no consequences coming from the exercise component.
Mm.
Whereas the drinking side of it, there were some pretty massive consequences that would come every single morning the next day. uh, again, like I phased out of one and into the other, and as I did that, my friend group changed, all of my activities changed. What people were asking me to do changed. Instead of going out to parties, people were asking me to go hiking in the Adirondacks and go for a bike ride and go for a
Mm.
run. So it was really gradual. I think the key is like start changing your behaviors first, and as you change your behaviors, it's very likely that your friend group will start to change. And then as you get accustomed to this new lifestyle, like you may want to change your environment. And that's ultimately what I did. Syracuse, New York does not beg you to be outside exercising all the time. It's cold and gray and
It's really
humid. And then Denver, it begs you to be outside all the time playing in the mountains. So,
Mhm.
ultimately your environment is going to heavily dictate your reality, and it's probably going to dictate like who your friend group is and what decisions you're faced with. But yeah, for me, first thing was finding someone who could get me on the right path of living this life of wellness. So step one, hire a personal trainer. I had a coach all throughout my triathlon years who input workouts for me. So I got to learn like the difference between exercise and training. So that was
Mhm.
super important to me. And then, joining these different clubs, triathlon clubs and CrossFit gyms, that exposed me to this whole new friend group. And, through that friend group, I started, just redefining my life, and I started living more for the days than the nights. Like I was really excited for 5:30 a.m. to hit my
Mhm.
morning run or my morning bike ride because there was so much progress coming from it. I was getting fitter, I was looking better, so I had these rewards associated with these training protocols. So yeah, that was my methodology. And during that time period, I also wrote out all of the activities, all of the people, all of the places that were just like draining my energy. And then I did the same for when I was just completely in the moment. All of the activities where I didn't want to be anywhere else, all of the people I was having conversations with where I wasn't thinking about, doing something else, and then
Mhm.
the different environments I was in where like I didn't want to be anywhere else.
Was there pain associated with losing that old friend group, or were you just so hyper focused on the new life that you were gonna live? Like, was there some micro pain that you had to go through in order to shed that friend group? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a people pleaser. I like making people feel good. So, I've often been the person who will, even if I don't feel like I'm thriving anymore, I'll say yes to things. Um, I've gotten much better at that as I've realized that, you're generally not going to massively offend people. People usually forget pretty fast.
Mm.
Especially once they see like this new journey you're on and how much you're thriving in this new journey. But yeah, it wasn't easy by any means, but everything in life is sets and reps. And as you start taking more risks, as you start saying no more often, it just gets easier.
Mm. That's really true, because I think a hard part for people is not only what you talked about, which is step one. Like, when are you gonna realize that this is like you? We were talking about this a little earlier. You can pretty much now with social media blink weeks by, because you can get lost in your job from 9 to 5, where you're just going, like, whether you're going in, whatever you're doing, get lost in your job, then you get lost in consuming all day.
Hmm.
And then days just turn into weeks, and then weeks turn into months, and then years go by, and you're like, where did all this time go?
Hmm.
Being able to kind of break out of that, it's kind of cliche, but breaking out of that matrix in terms of getting out of the consumption and getting into the creating.
Hmm.
Before you were doing influencing and before you were doing that, when did you start to recognize that pattern where you're like, okay, the more I'm just not in this frame and the more I'm in this frame, I feel better? Was it right when you wrote that down? And what inspired you to write that list down?
Yeah. It was during the Ironman years where I started to recognize that I had a lot of time alone exercising, 2 hour bike ride or 5 hour
Mm,
bike rides, 2 hour runs, where your endorphins are racing, you're in nature. And it created this space in my mind to be able to think about how I really wanted my life to be designed. And I just felt so fulfilled after all of those sessions because I was progressing in something
mm,
and I wasn't just chasing more money to chase more money and buy more things. Like I felt like I was really bettering myself. And through bettering myself, I was bettering all of those around me. So I think that is really when it clicked was during those years. And it was that progress side of exercise. And then seeing how many other people were inspired by it and how many other people were getting into exercise and getting into triathlons and doing Ironmans from me inspiring them because my cup was so full and they saw that energy and that passion and purpose that I was exuding on social media and in person. And during that same time period is when I also started making those lists of
mm-hmm,
like, damn, I felt so good after that run today. Like, I want to build my life around triathlon.
mm-hmm.
And that was a flow state conversation with, my friends starting a new CPG brand in New York City. Like, I want to have more of those conversations. Like, hey, let's have a reoccurring calendar appointment every other month to jump back on a call. And I continue to do that. Like, I have a good conversation with someone. I'm like, all right, let's every other month, let's jump on a call because I want to continue this dialogue with you. I think we both can add massive benefit into each other's lives.
Super interesting.
So yeah, I mean the more you find presence in what you're doing, who you're with, the environment you're in, the more you're going to want to build your day around those activities. And then obviously the holy grail is figuring out how to monetize that.
Yeah. So were you over informed with like, because it started with your insurance business. You are an entrepreneur through and through. If you like really get to know Eric the person, you are an entrepreneur through and through. Started with the insurance business. You kind of found the value of money and you started making a ton of it. When were you like, okay, money isn't going to just be my thing? It's
Mhm.
not just about money for me. You obviously are working out, you're doing these other things, but you build your companies that you work with, work for very differently than anybody I've ever seen.
Mhm.
What inspired that?
Um, so I've always been more of a solo entrepreneur. I really enjoy um, making enough freedom and flexibility in my schedule to still do a lot of the things I enjoy. Like we've talked about this a
Mhm.
lot, where, now I'm saying no to most things unless it allows me to continue living my life the way I want to live it. Where early on, it was very much around, I'm just going to say yes to everything so that I can try and generate a little more income every single
Mhm.
year. Now, money doesn't really matter to me nearly as much as it did. Freedom and flexibility to do what I love every single day matters most.
Mm,
So that is how I run my businesses, where I look at opportunities based on, is it going to weave in with my current lifestyle, and or is it going to create more freedom and flexibility down the road to be able to do what I enjoy doing? So, does it create reoccurring income? Is it an asset that I'm building? Or is it not just trading time for money? It's me doing exactly what I would be doing every single day, anyways. And all I have to do is, document it.
mhm.
And like, I'm on a lot of calls now, but I've picked companies and founders of companies that I really enjoy interacting with. I mean, they're friends. I'm going to Kauai with two of them in 3 weeks to do XPT with Laird Hamilton and his crew. And like all of the people I do business with, I want to hang out with on a regular basis. I want to work out with them. I want them to come and spend time with us in Denver. I want to do brand activations. I want to put on wellness retreats with them. So I've been really careful in selecting who I surround myself with and making sure that I really enjoy being around them and that, we both add value for each other,
Mm.
that I'm able to help move the needle for them and they find value in what I'm doing because ultimately that's so much more fulfilling than just collecting a check. Like if you know that you're adding significant value and you're making someone better, a company better, then that's way more fulfilling than just getting another, some more money in the bank account.
Well, we had a conversation in the sauna one day when I was at your house that really opened my eyes to like, what does it truly mean to be not have to worry about money? and you broke it down. Do you remember that conversation? You broke it down in terms of what it meant to make 250,
Mhm.
500, and then a million.
Mhm.
Could you explain that? Because I think what I see a problem with, especially with 20-year-olds, since I met you, I've recognized that although you have you had a path through insurance and everything like that, if you could go back with the tools that we have now, you would have probably built something insane at that age with everything that we have available, with everything in social media.
Mhm.
You can curate this now. And that's what you've taught me. It's like what you want, like the fact that you can like your clients and you can hang out with them and you can build it around a lifestyle that you want.
Mhm.
Obviously, is there sacrifice with that? Of course there is. But for kind of speak on the fact that we're chasing money, yet we don't realize that if we get the wrong kind of money, it's a trap. And some
Mhm.
people can never get out of that because of their lifestyle.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the golden handcuff is a very real thing where, you take a high paying job out of school, then, you start a family and you have a mortgage and you have car payments, and then you're paying for your, children's private school. Like all of a sudden it becomes a trap that's hard to leave because it's just too much risk to leave something that you don't enjoy to start something else. So, I mean, my advice to people, if they don't enjoy what they're doing, they're stuck in this kind of golden handcuff position, is, just figuring out what is that side hustle you want to do. And I would never recommend just completely like pulling the rug under the golden handcuff, especially if you have a family and, people that you're supporting. But, if you can start figuring out some of these side hobbies or partnering with people and, partnering with operators, so it's not as much of a time suck for you, then slowly you're able to get out of what that golden handcuff is. And I mean, with my insurance business, it very much was a golden handcuff for a while. It was paying for my lifestyle, and I was intimately involved with everything. I thought that I was the only person that could deal with my clients. And as I started delegating more of what I was doing to someone else, I realized that, like, okay, I'm good at cultivating relationships. Only I can be me and do that. But, all of the other stuff, the admin stuff, like I can outsource that. I don't have to be doing that anymore. So as I started doing that, it became a drug. And I'm like, wow, how far can I remove myself from this and still get the residual income from the insurance business? And I got it down to a point where I now spend, maybe 2 hours a year on my insurance business that I started when I was 21 years old and still own today. So I think, if you're coming out of college, my advice is try and pick something. Let's say that you're not passionate about what you're picking, like you just need to create this foundation so that eventually you can start taking some risks and do something that you truly enjoy. Try and find something where you're not just trading time for money. So pick an opportunity where you can either generate residual income or you can generate an asset that could be sellable. And I mean, the beautiful thing about today's day and age is we have easy access to everyone out there. It's like you guys can reach out to people now where I didn't have that in my,
Yeah.
teens and 20s. Like it was just like text messaging then. There was no social media, there was no major networks where we could communicate with others or see what other people were forming. And now you can do that, and now you can build a hell of a business just around content creation and social media. Not to make it sound easier than it is. It's not easy, but you have the opportunity to broadcast something and inspire people or make people laugh, evoke some kind of motion, or add some kind of value through social media. And money is always going to flow where there's awareness.
Mhm.
If there's lots of eyeballs on something, marketing dollars are going to flow towards that. So, whether it's Instagram 10 years from now or some other platform where there's massive awareness, money is always going to flow to awareness. So, yeah, those are my biggest pieces of advice: is you build an asset, build residual income, or surround yourself with people who've gotten where you want to go. That's really the only way to short track success, is finding people that you can surround yourself with that can help you on the same path they got to.
One of my favorite comments that you get on your Instagram is, "Oh, this guy just works out all day." It's insane to see. And then what you're talking about influencer marketing and being an influencer, as it's like, oh, it's the easy route. It's like everybody assume, and like not there's a lot of hard jobs out there. We're not discrediting any job that is hard, but like you already said at the beginning, 2012, 2013. You've put in more reps and sets than probably 99.9% of people that are influencers today.
Mhm.
And yet now you've built an entire life with the North Star being, I want to live the best life that I possibly can. It's like, how do you not let that get to you? Or are you just so not focused on it that you're like, no, this is exactly what I built. This is what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna fool you. Like negativity definitely drains your energy. It's kind of crazy for every 100 positive comments, like one negative comment affects you so much more than those 100 positive comments because nobody wants to be attacked.
Yeah.
Nobody wants stones thrown at them. But as you have more of an audience, it's just bound to happen. Social media is a wonderful place to meet people, and it's also a wonderful place to attract haters. So it's just a fact of the matter that as your audience grows, you're going to have people who, spit negativity at you. And again, it's one of those things where just like hearing no in my first, business of selling insurance, like you develop this shell for it. And I know who I am. I know what I do every single day. So someone who said something like, I mean, I had a recent post where I had a bunch of people comment, like, must be nice not to do anything all day and must be nice not to go to a job. And it's like, I mean, I created this life for myself. I didn't just have like some trust fund that was rolled out for me and I have all this money and I'm doing whatever I want. Like I do work hard.
Yeah.
I work every single fucking day and there's not a day that goes by where I'm sitting on a couch just watching Netflix, not doing something. I'm out there in the world creating value. So it definitely shifts your energy when you see the negativity, but the more you realize that generally that person is coming at you from a place of they're hurting in their life, that they see what you have and they want that, and they don't know how to get it, so the only way for them to feel better is to say something negative to
Mhm.
you. So I recognize that, like I've been in this world long enough to be able to put myself in other people's shoes to understand how and why they might think the way they do.
When you think of like the influencer market as a whole, do you see more and more people that you come in contact with? Is it easier now? Because like once you get past a certain route, is it easier now? Like, what is because a lot of people know like the fitness aspect, but there's the business aspect of it. When you're connecting with these brands, is it getting easier? Is the pitch for influencer marketing easier? Is it getting more saturated to where it's like people aren't getting the bang for buck that they used to? What do you see?
Yeah, so it was definitely harder 6 years ago when it was just this new frontier and
Mm,
no one really knew how much to pay, what kind of value they were going to get, what it actually means to have influence, whether or not like certain people were going to move the needle for a certain brand. So I would say that's when it was hardest. And then 3 years ago, like everyone just wanted to be surrounded by influencers because that was the new way that you spent your marketing dollars. And
it's true.
now I think like companies are starting to pull back and they're starting to work with creators that have really good product market fit. And from what I see, they're more selective with who they're working with. They're not just hiring some influencer marketing agency saying we want people with 500,000 followers in the wellness space. They're reaching out to people who have networks and know who cultivates online communities and who cultivates in-person communities. One of my friends who's running a company called Runway right now, he said it really well. He said, we want people who, when they promote something on social media, like a group run, they have 100 people show up. That's who we want to hire as our influencers because that person is influential. They're attracting people, and they're likely attracting people because they're making people feel a certain way or they're making people around them better. So I think that's who companies are now looking towards for generating awareness. There's kind of different buckets that I would put influencers in. Like some are really, really good at like whitelisting ads. So that's a bucket where you can excel at
Hmm.
just creating really good ads for companies where they're going to sponsor your content. There's the community builder side, which is what I like to think I am. I love building communities. There's people that have like really good product market fit, like an Andrew Huberman, who understands the science side of everything, and anything he talks about turns to gold because he's so knowledgeable about how these different supplements or routines affect your well-being and your health span and your lifespan. So there's people that make people laugh, there's people that are super controversial, and that works. Like there's all of these different routes that you can go. And I think the important thing is figuring out where the lane you want to own. Like where do you think you can just like own that space, and what do you want to do for 5 years and 10,000 hours, so you become a thought leader and you become an expert and you become the go-to source for that lane that you own.
Because it's interesting. I look at you as somebody that is like the standard in terms of the wellness industry, in terms of influencers, but it's much bigger than the fact that you know business and the fact of you've spent 15 years
Mhm.
building other businesses, being in the world. Um, what do you think the challenges that a 20 something kind of fresh out of college faces in the influencer world that you, because of the reps and sets that you put in, you don't doesn't affect you. It doesn't hurt you as bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just like thinking about return on investment.
Hmm.
How am I going to provide return on investment for who I'm working with? Because that's really the only way you're going to guarantee that this company continues to pay you, is if you provide that for them instead of. I mean, obviously, you have to build a following and an audience first. So I think it's important to, focus in on that, like be an amazing content creator or go off into the world and, have some accolades associated with you. And then once you have that, then it's figuring out how can I provide ROI for brands. So, obviously with time generally is going to come more experience, more accolades. But I mean, there's a lot of young people that are better content creators than I am. They understand how to create captive content better than I do. They understand the social media algorithms better than I do. So, I mean, that's a weakness for me. So that's where I can learn from the younger generations. And then I think the younger generations can learn from older generations in, okay, he has a tremendous amount of experience in understanding how businesses scale, and, how to pitch yourself to a company, and how to structure a contract to show like the different deliverables you're going to give them to add value for you.
Hmm. When you think of your fitness life and your business life, is there like a mantra? Is there something that you've locked in on in terms of what keeps you like driven? Like what, like it has to be bigger than, I'd imagine it would have to be bigger than just, this is just what I want to do.
Mhm. I mean, movement is medicine is for sure the mantra I live by. I've been doing this long enough to understand how to structure my day so that I have a full cup and I can give back and I can inspire others and I can make others, like you said, feel better.
Mm,
And, that is definitely a big purpose for me is I want others to feel the same way I feel, and I want others to be able to attract opportunities the same way I've been able to attract opportunities. And that really is a function of just like blossoming as the best version of yourself. And once you get there, you're going to have such a full cup that you're going to be able to give back. You're going to attract amazing people into your life. And, that ultimately is going to attract opportunities.
yeah. W- Would you, if you could talk to the 20-year-old, if would you say go figure out your cash flow first, or would you say try to build this alignment right out of the box,
Mhm.
like for any somebody that's just trying to get started?
I mean, I think a lot depends on your scenario. If you don't have any cash flow, if you're not able to rely on, your parents to offset your basic needs, then yeah, you need your basic needs met. So
Hmm.
I think that's step number one is how are you going to meet your basic needs? So shelter, food, enough money that you can get by and you can live and you're not going to have to worry about money constantly. And as you're doing that, like have these side hustles and start figuring out like what you enjoy doing, who you enjoy being around. And again, like what lane do you want to own so that eventually you own that lane and then you're doing exactly what you want to do every single day and you're around the people that you want to be around and you're monetizing it.
Hmm. I think it's I always struggle with that because I get caught in this mindset of like when I'm building something, especially in a world that you called it's like a new frontier.
Mhm.
We're building a brand, a business that if I told anybody that was younger than like or older than me that wasn't in this world that we're in would be like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
Like personal brands, what? Like, so there's this mindset that get kind of intoxicated by that's like safe, easy, like safe money. Where's the stability? And
Mhm.
like, I don't know if that's a trap. And a lot of people feel this way. They're like, oh, I need to go like Eric did and just go into insurance first.
Mhm.
I just need to go solve that like income problem first. Do you believe that we live in a world now that you can just kind of merge the two together?
I do. Yeah. Again, I think social media has created this ability for all of us to generate awareness and to build a personal brand. And I mean, my personal brand has brought me so many amazing opportunities. The ability to invest in companies, the ability to access lots of people regardless of where I am. I mean, I was just at a True Baristas, this coffee truck, and a guy walked by and said, "Hey, are you Eric? I follow you on social media. One of my good friends is Lan, who owns the Normal brand. I love your content." And I mean, I get that a lot now, and it's really cool. And it's through social media.
Yeah.
I wasn't on a TV show, I wasn't a professional athlete. Like it's literally just from social media that I have this network of people where, I'm adding value for them. And by adding value for them, I'm, able to capitalize on that through creating content for brands and exposing brands to those consumers who value my content. So yeah, I think we do live in a world where you can play both. I think it's smart to get into fields where a lot of wealth is created with real estate. So, if I was young again and I had to write this surviving chapter, I probably would go into real estate of some kind because I would want to get a front row seat to understand how people generate wealth for
Mm.
themselves through, buying rental properties and buying a home, fixing it up, taking that capital out of it and not getting taxed on, that loan that you took out of the house from the value you created. So get into various fields where you can build assets, where you can build, more tax-free income, where you can build passive income. Like those are the opportunities that I would pick for my, not what I want to do for the rest of my life, but I want this to be like my passive income play and the knowledge I amass because so many other people have gotten wealthy from doing that.
The prisoner of the moment is what a lot of 20 something year olds is caught in. One of my favorite things that I've learned from you is the idea of life in chapters.
Hmm.
There's chapters you're going to love, there's chapters you're going to hate, you're going to have survival chapters like we're talking about. When you start looking at your life as chapters, what do you want to build now? What is the next chapter? Obviously, do you have a North Star? Like, I want to build $100 million this thing. Like, how do you see the next couple of chapters for Eric's life going?
Yeah, I would say my next life chapters are building these little wellness communes. I want to attract the people I want to be around to places where I am so that I can interact with the people I enjoy being around every single day. I mean, that's so much of why we're building a house now in Austin is because I love the people of Austin. That's ultimately what attracted me there.
Hmm.
For me, having close friends and being able to meet new friends through those close friends is so important for me to thrive. So that's what I'm looking more towards now is just how can I attract people I want to be around to the places I'm in and where can I go to continue meeting the people that I want to meet. And again, like I know through doing this that it's going to continue to create financial opportunities for me just by being around like-minded people where we're both adding significant value for each other. On the business side of things, what am I looking to do? I've really enjoyed raising money for brands, investing in early stage brands. I'm starting to see some of those investments come to fruition. So I'm starting to expose more and more people to these early stage investments and what I perceive to be the next latest and greatest better for you products or wellness brands. So, doing that through SPVs right now, but eventually probably a fund. Um, creating, these wellness houses is something I'm really interested in continuing to do. Austin is the next one. Not sure where we'll look after that, but I know that those will be assets down the road that will continue hopefully to appreciate. But in the moment, again, I just want to be doing what I enjoy every single day, which I want to make sure there's enough time that I can be outside exercising. I can go to a gym and exercise. I can host people for contrast therapy. I can host people for dinner each night. Like, I don't want to get trapped in, an office at a desk all day, because that's not where I thrive.
Hmm. One thing I wanted to touch on is when we talked about your Ironman training, the idea was that you went about 6 years
hmm
without taking a day off.
hmm
Mind blowing to most people. That amount of discipline, that amount of commitment, what inspired that, and how the hell, and it might be very simple, but like, how the hell does somebody go from 1 day a week to 6 years straight?
Yeah, just start. I mean, starting is the hardest part. Hiring a personal trainer. That's how I started. Then
Yeah.
hiring a coach, and think like a bumblebee, train like a racehorse. That was kind of my motto through those years.
Hmm.
So a bumblebee isn't supposed to fly based on its shape, but because it thinks it can, it does. And then a racehorse just executes, doesn't overthink it, just listens to its master and it goes. And that's what I did in the triathlon years. Thought like a bumblebee. I had positive thoughts that I would eventually get to Kona, and I hired a coach, and all of my workouts were in this platform called Training Peaks, and they were red if I didn't do them, and they turned green when I did them, and I want them all to be green.
Hmm.
And I mean, my North Star very much through those years was getting to Kona. I hadn't been world class at anything yet. And I just became obsessed with getting to the Ironman World Championships and feeling like I was world class at something. I had to prove it to myself. So that was very much my North Star then. Now would I like to get to the CrossFit Games in my age group? Yeah. Do I think about it each training session? No. I think more about, again, just like feeling good day in and day out, being around the people I want to be around, doing what I enjoy doing, and monetizing that. That's what I think about now each day.
Yeah, it's that wanting to be world class at something, I think, is hard for most athletes to like break out of, because you're either training to be that person, or you're building the life that you're talking about. It's hard to join those. So we're in a chapter now where we had to sit as a team and go, hey, like, I want to go do Quest for the Crest.
Mhm.
It's a huge trail race. Tried to do it last year, didn't train for it, not going to happen. Okay. I now know that I have to go put my life a little bit on pause, because
Mhm.
I can't travel and make that happen the same way that I could if I put it away.
Mhm.
But I want to go accomplish that. I
Mhm.
have to put everything else away, and I have to just focus on the mission at hand. Might miss travel, might miss that. When do you think that transition for you? Because I know you had a killer mentality.
Mhm.
We've talked about it. Like, the mindset that you had in that phase of Ironman, it was just hugely focused, and that was showing up in business and everything like that.
Mhm.
Does that take away from your business, or do you feel like now you have more energy, more time, more attention to put towards that?
I mean, I definitely made a lot of sacrifices during those Ironman years. My days were super structured. I said no to a lot. I wasn't traveling much. If I was traveling, I was looking for a YMCA where I could swim, and I was looking for a
Mhm.
indoor cycling studio where I could get my bike workouts in. I was looking for running paths where I could get my run in. Like, everything was prioritized around getting in my training so that I hit those workouts. They turned from red to green, and ultimately that's how I knew I was going to get to Kona, as if I just laser focused on that. I'm not nearly as focused now in any one thing. I'm more focused on feeling good day in and day out, being able to replicate what I do day in and day out. And I don't have this big lofty goal at the moment. Will I again at some point? Probably, but right now I don't. I'm just really enjoying life. I'm enjoying this chapter, and I've been able to separate my ego from fulfillment. Like, the Iron Man years, like, I wanted to satisfy my ego. I wanted to feel like I was world class at something. And now it's so much more just around fulfillment. Like, I know what I need to do each day to feel really fulfilled.
It's the awareness aspect of it. I think you have to map it out, which we've talked about a ton in this podcast. It's like, if you don't like your life, you got to map out why.
Mhm.
And then once you figure that out, you're able to change and move and evolve. Eric, I really appreciate this. Obviously, we could probably go on for hours, but I appreciate your time. What do you have going on right now? You have a lot of stuff going on. What are you most focused on pushing out, like getting people to, like, what's the newest of the new that you want people to hear about?
Yeah. I mean, 2 days I'm doing a half marathon here in Miami with a weight vest. So that's my near focus is getting through that. What I'm most excited about this year though are the founders only retreats that I'm hosting where I curate them with about 30 founders of wellness brands, investors in wellness brands and creators. The next one is coming up in Austin, February 26th. I'll do another one in April 8th until April 10th in Minneapolis, which you just attended,
Yep.
doing the sauna and ice camp, which was really fun. I'm going to do one in Denver with Brian Mazza, HPLT in June, and then I'll do another one in Palm Springs sometime in October. So, really excited about those. I really enjoy these wellness retreats, not only for my own, just like I feel good doing it, but it's another one of these scenarios where I get to watch afterwards these relationships blossom from just putting like-minded people together that can all add value for each other. And it's really cool to see these relationships, friendships, business relationships form from it.
Yeah, as somebody that went to one literally last week, I can say that your ability to do that and do it in such a number one, I am now on Organifi and I'll probably never get off thanks to that retreat. I got reconnected with contrast therapy, which again in most people's day-to-day life, it's easy to get disconnected from that.
Mhm.
I got connected to a bunch of people that were all pushing towards something that I wanted to pursue as well. I got to learn so much. So anybody that is listening to this, the founders only retreats, they're just in their kind of infancy, but you're bringing what you do to everybody else's life now to this retreat, and I mean it's impactful, man. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, brother.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. We linked the socials below. Anything else that you want to send people to? I know you got a newsletter. What can they expect from your newsletter? Because I want people to sign up for that.
Yeah, newsletter, erichinman.com. Go to my website. You can find it there. And it's called The Movement Memo. And it's a lot of these stories that we just talked about twice a week. It's stories from my life that have gotten me here. So it's kind of a mentorship type newsletter.
Subscribe to it. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Sick.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, man. Thank